Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering the Afterparty. Season 1, Episode 1. Aniq. In this episode, we get introduced to a really fun murder mystery. Y'all, I am so here for this. I cannot wait to watch the next one. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you so much to Max for commissioning this episode. Max usually can't come to the live recordings, but I miss you, bud, and hopefully you can come to maybe one or two of these. I really am excited about getting to... Anytime it's a murder mystery, I'm always 100% on board because I just cannot resist. But this is a murder mystery with an almost solid comedy cast. Everybody in this is somebody who has been in comedies, and that's like their main bread and butter. And so I am really stoked to see where we go, because this is like just the first episode, and comedies are really hard to get tonally on with one episode. Like any comedy out there that has run for several seasons, you will hear people being like, maybe skip the first season. Like, there are certain ones you can't do that with, like The Good Place, but a lot of them, it's, things you have to like wait to get your feet under you a little bit. The characters, it's like the writers didn't quite know where they were going with certain things. And I really am impressed at how on point everybody feels from the get-go. But that is also part of the beauty of these sort of like locked room murder mysteries, that you are dealing with people who, when you do a script like this, you make people really distinctive and over the top, because you're not trying to create a wider world. You're trying to create a puzzle inside this one like scenario in somebody's life. And that is probably a really great way to mesh comedy into something and have it be like effective. Anyway, I'm just really excited because I went into this full on not knowing what it was. I have a feeling that when Max booked this with me, he told me that it was a murder mystery, but it's been so long now, I don't remember. And I started up the show full on blind, did not know. And when I realized what we were going with, because the way this is set up, I love how the show opens. So we start off with Aniq in the car, and he is listening to Shaggy's Angel, or wait, is it Sean King? Sean King. What is his name? I'm trying to remember. Is it Shaggy's like part of the song, right? Is it featuring Shaggy? I can't remember. But regardless, he's pulling up to a class reunion. We have him checking his email, and he's like really excited because somebody named Zoe had asked him if he was coming, and she said that she couldn't wait to catch up. And it's very clear from the pep talk that he is giving himself that he's nervous about seeing her, that he wasn't sure about coming in the first place, that he is like hoping to make a good impression, and that he's been waiting to see her for a long time. And it goes right from him checking himself out in the mirror and taking off his glasses, which I personally think is a mistake. I really like the glasses. It goes with his whole nerd aesthetic. Keep them. But it cuts right from there to some dude flying off a cliff and landing on the rocks below. And that was when I was like, oh, wait, what? And then we go to the opening credits, which are dope as hell. It's like a really cool sort of, almost like a stamp sort of, not stamp like postage stamp, but like an ink stamp sort of motif, where all of the images have a kind of roughness to them, and there are blank spots in the silhouettes. It reminds me of like a James Bond sort of opening, the way that it, but it's like, I found this to be a lot more engaging than normal for me with opening credits. It's not the sort of thing that makes or breaks a show for me by any means. There are plenty of opening credits that are spectacular, and the show wound up being very whatever. But this, I felt like they struck a really, really nice note here of them being visually intriguing. The visuals played in with the audio really well, because there's a part where some of the lines that are on the screen like begin to light up, and then you hear the sirens and they look like police lights, and then they end a little sooner than you're expecting them to, and it felt like just a perfect length, like just enough for me to go, ooh, what is this? And then as soon as I started to be like, okay, maybe I'm done, they ended, and I was like, oh, nice, perfect. So we open with Detective Danner, who is heading into a crime scene, and she is being told by her superior named Greg, who sounds super familiar, this actor, and I'm sure once I see him, I'm going to be like, oh, it's that guy. But he is telling her that the chief has already brought in a ringer that is going to work on this case, who's named Detective Germain. He caught the tar pit strangler. And she says that she knows who that is and that he's garbage. So this dude says he'll be on the first flight in the morning. He's taking lead detective. And she says, well, what if I solve the case before he gets here? And basically what this guy says is you can collect statements, and that's literally it, nothing else. But she completely ignores that and tells everybody that she's lead on this case and that she is 100% authorized, and she goes into this doing a lot. Well, she is taking statements, but she's definitely like throwing her weight around here. And she has somebody with her. I feel like I'm going to need help with the names in this. I'm going to try and use the subtitles to help me, because sometimes those will tell you who's talking. But at the moment, it's not telling me. And her partner is really fun, because he's sort of like, he is a little bit more squeamish when he sees the body than I was expecting, which really leads me to assume that he has not been involved with many murders before. And the like scene with the body, there's more going on than I was expecting. So she approaches the body at the foot of this cliff, and there's a whole staircase that leads down, because he's got like a private beach here, which eventually we find out that this dude is like a pop singer turned actor, like superstar. And he just goes by Xavier or Xavier. He apparently is fine with saying it either way. And there's shrimp all around the body, cooked shrimp. And there's also a hat underneath this dude, which means that he was pushed after his hat went flying, because if he were wearing it when he went over, the hat would have fluttered off of his head. But since it's trapped under him, that means he came afterward. And there's a blonde wig off to the side, which I'm really, really curious about, because we haven't seen anybody at this party that I can recall who was like had blonde hair at any point. So if somebody snuck up into the party by wearing a blonde wig at some point, like who wouldn't recognize them by their face? Everybody's got a really distinctive look. I just can't imagine how that would factor into anything. So we'll have to see. I love her partner. Can I get one of those yellow things with the numbers on them? He doesn't know what he's asking for. So let's see. Maybe not a suicide. What if it's an accident? What if he's looking out at the view over the balcony? Plate of shrimp cocktail. He looks down. I'm not wearing a shirt. It's literally the first time that night he's realizing it. The shock of that jostles the hat. It falls off the balcony. He goes to get it and he falls. Oh, that is such an amazing... It's the first moment he's noticed that he doesn't have a shirt on. That's a good bit. So we jump inside, and poor Aniq is sitting there with all kinds of Sharpie written on his face. It says dork on his cheek. It says nerd across his forehead. He's got a circle around one eye. He's got cat whiskers. Like, the whole thing is looking really, really messy. And we get our first look at everybody here, but then we backtrack and go to the actual class reunion, like later on in the episode, and we see who all of these people are. And the only actor that I did not recognize is the one playing the modern dramatist with the square glasses and the martini in her hand. Everybody else is somebody that I recognize from another show. Guy who is excited to have discovered the Wi-Fi password was from Fleabag. We've got Jean-Ralphio here from Parks and Rec. We have got what's-her-face from Broad City. We've got the woman who plays the representative from Hell in what was that show I was just talking about? The Good Place. There's just this is a cast absolutely loaded with actors I know and love. Unfortunately, I do have to really quickly mention, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up the IMDb just for this first episode, and they are pretty good on TV shows, not spoiling you if you just go to the particular one episode that you're looking for. So I'm going to do that, and then I can just see hopefully the cast list, and that won't give anything away, and I can describe everybody by name a little bit more. Okay, so we got Aniq, Zoe. Oh, Brett is the name of the asshole ex. Chelsea is the girl who's drinking. That's the girl from Broad City. Jasper is Jean-Ralphio. Dave Franco is Xavier. Okay, thank God. I was like, I know that he's related to James Franco, but I cannot remember his name. Walt is Jamie Demetrio. His like picture isn't here, which is surprising to me because he is really in a lot. I recognize him immediately from Fleabag, but he was also in the Barbie movie, and he was in what do you call it? The Cruella movie. He was so good in that. And let's see. Yeah, I think that, Kelvin Yu is Ned. I don't recognize him, actually, now that I say that. Jennifer 2 is Aiden Mayeri. Tia Sircar is Jennifer number 1. Okay, cool. So, Tiffany Haddish, I can never remember how you say her name. I just really want to address off the top that I'm going to try not to have an attitude about her. She has, like, in the past year, there's been some really troubling stuff that has come to light about her and a particular skit that she did. And the skit was done years ago, but she has not made an adequate apology, in my opinion, for it. And it was a skit about a guy who is a pedophile. And, like, the joke is what a creep he is. And they had actual children in the skit, and there was a lot of drama surrounding the dishonesty with which she told the parents what they were filming for. Apparently the kids, like, she told the parents the film was something else, and then once it came to light what they were filming, and she had the children doing, like, really suggestive things in the skit as part of the joke, it was like, I watched the skit. It's really, really gross. Like, it's not funny in any sense. It's not even funny if you're like, oh, I'm going to turn my brain off and act like pedophilia is just a goof. That even on that level, it's not funny. And the skit was like put up, I think, by Funny or Die, and they wound up taking it down. So once people started talking about this, they had to find the skit, and it got loaded onto YouTube somewhere else. But she, like I said, hasn't really like addressed the drama surrounding this. And there's been a lot of like back and forth about whether the parents knew more than they're saying they did. It doesn't really matter. What it comes down to for me is that the skit itself was mocking pedophilia in a way that's like not, it was making the pedophilia itself the joke, which isn't at all funny. And it was done in a really tasteless way that may have in and of itself been exploiting kids. So I just have a bit of a ick reaction to her these days, which is a shame because I loved her initially. And she's turned out to be in a lot of stuff. And I wish that I could like root for her. But after this and the fact that she hasn't really like handled it, I can't get on board with her. And I want to be able to. You know how that is? It's like if you would just say XYZ, that could put this whole thing to bed and we wouldn't have to talk about it or think about it anymore. But she hasn't done that, and it's just, I can't get past it because it was so, there were so many choices that had to be made for this skit to come into being. It's not like somebody just saying something thoughtless in an interview on the red carpet, or somebody tweeting something 10 years ago that was problematic that they shot this tweet off without really thinking it through. This was something that like extensive choices had to be made one after the other over a long course of time. And the fact that there were actual children involved takes it to a whole other level. So anyway, I am not going to focus on that at all, but I really, really want to like explain that I may have an attitude about her a little bit, and I'm going to try not to, but I want y'all to know where I'm coming from on this. And also, if you are not aware of this whole thing with her, I think you should be, just, you know, for the information. So anyway, that's the vibe I'm coming in with, but I really do enjoy her character and the way that she's playing her character. So like, so far her performance here is on point and I'm definitely into it. I just wish I didn't have this baggage. So she walks in and there's a couple of things that we see right off the bat. So she's walking past a table that has got like some laser etched portrait of Xavier with like the light coming up from underneath. And she's walking past this table and there's water on the floor and she like slips and almost falls. And I'm real curious about what the deal is with that puddle. Then she comes into the room and there is an arrow jammed into the wall in the forehead of Xavier in the poster for that movie that he was in, that like goofy jungle hunt movie. She sees a shrub shaped like an X covered in shrimp that has been knocked over. And as she's looking around is just like taking stock of how much of a mess the place is. And there's a lot out of order. There's a guitar that is busted up and like hollowed. I mean, guitars are hollow, but like there's a chunk taken out of one side so you can just see clear into it. And then there are a series of beer bottles and empty Solo cups on the floor with like a ski and what looks to be a couple of jean jackets. I didn't even notice those at first. And I love that she says, y'all are some messy white folks. But then she sees Aniq and goes, oh, hey. And there's just a moment of like, oh, okay, there's one black person here. I love her partner. Get comfortable, folks, but not too comfortable, like wool pajamas. That is, that's a hell of a line. So I'm trying to find the spot where her partner, because she starts to introduce him. And as she does, she gets distracted by the arrow in the wall. So she keeps like going on with what the hell is going on. And he finally has to chime in. Culp. I'm Detective Culp. Okay, that's his name. I'm saying this. I have the fucking IMDb open. Ugh, I'm so dumb. So just as she is telling everybody to stay off social media because she doesn't want this to be a circus. The news chimes in because we've got everybody is already on their phone. Like, there has been no containment of any kind. So the news already knows they are outside of his compound is the word that they're calling it, which I'm really curious what constitutes a compound, because to me it just looks like a house with like a private beach, and there may be just more to this property than we have gotten to see. But just as a side note, I was trying to make a postcard, or not a postcard, an event for Unsober, because Rashawn and I are going to talk about what we would include for the unspoiled compound if we were ever to build something that was like a co-op for people to live in. And I was trying to find synonyms for the word compound, and it is wild how hard it is when you mean a like location or building. Everybody thinks you mean mixture. And I could not fucking find another word. Eventually, I just had to look up like complex and find something from there. And complex also means a whole other thing. It was a challenge. So I was laughing because that took me ages last night. And then the word compound gets used here. And that is not a word you hear in that context very often. So I was sort of struck by it. But we get to see, this is so great, you guys. I love this so much. The career that he's got. Born in the Bay Area, son of owner of coffee chain Jeans Beans. At age 21, went platinum with the song X Marks the G Spot. Off his album, Someone Save Me. It's XAP. And from there, he turned to acting, starring in jungle adventure Hungry Hungry Hippos. And we see him with, I think that's Will Arnett, just like screaming and shooting wildly, but you don't see what at. Securing a People's Choice Award nomination for his portrayal of Daryl Hall alongside Channing Tatum's Oates in the musical biopic Private Eyes. And you guys, this bit is so, so stupid. I love it so much. What they do is Tatum says something about how this city will chew you up and spit you out. It's an eater of men. And he turns and says, say that again, which, that's a thing. It's so incredibly corny. In Ray, the movie about Ray Charles that has Jamie Foxx in it, you guys, there's a moment where his girlfriend is angry at him and is kicking him out of the house and yelling at him to hit the road. And he says, yeah, channel that anger, and sits at the piano and starts to play. And she just starts singing angrily, and it turns into Hit the Road Jack's origin story. And it is the most corny ass shit you have ever heard in your life. It's so, and that movie is otherwise like very corny, but that is 100% the worst part. I will never forget, even when I was younger and thought that the movie was like done pretty well, being taken out of the moment entirely during that scene, because I saw it in the theater, and being like, are they serious? Like, I couldn't believe this was made it into the movie. So I really enjoyed this joke because that's like a fucking literal thing. So yeah, this is the origin of the song Maneater. You go high, I'll go the same high. I love that. So they have to turn it off. And this is when we get the detective's monologue about how, who knows what could happen, but sometimes somebody does something that sets you off. And just like that, you snap and do something that you might regret. And there is an aside where Brett and I've already forgotten her name, Chelsea, right? She comes to talk to him, and she is telling him that she knows what he's got hidden in his car. And he says, and I know what you said. Let's see, I'm trying to find the spot, because I know what you're hiding in your car. And he turns around and says, I know what you said to me in the hallway at the reunion. And they both agree, I guess nobody needs to say anything about anything. And I am assuming each of them is just doing some like very petty illegal shit. Like, probably either she drove drunk or she's got drugs. He is probably somebody who, like, sells stolen cell phones. Like, I'm putting this at real low-level petty shit. But the two of them are completely unconscious of the fact that the detective is up on the balcony watching and listening to everything. Like, it's very easy to overhear what they're talking about. And I do like that he keeps talking and is like, well, then why are we still talking? And she says, because you seem to want to get the last word and that annoys me. And they depart the camera and it comes back and they're still each trying to finish the conversation. And eventually he just walks away and she's like, there, good, great. So this whole, like, what we're getting from Danner is that she is observant in a particular way. She notices that Zoe is an artist because she's got ink on her hands, and that the adorkable guy is really into her, and she has to point that out to Culp. And she says, there's too many of you to take down to the station, so I'll be interviewing all of you here. But yeah, she asks for the perspectives of each of the people who are, as she describes it, the star of their own movie. And everything that you hear is going to be filtered through your own perception. You have your own take. And it's my job to assemble all of these disparate points of view and put together a story. So, as part of my process, I like to talk to each person and hear your mind movie. And I really, really enjoy this concept because what we get is all right, I'm getting ahead of myself because first we have one of the Jennifers accusing Aniq of murdering this woman or this dude. And so-and-so saw Aniq at the scene of the crime. Indigo is her name. That is a killer name. I fucking love that. Indigo, tell her. And she says, darling, avec plaisir. She says with pleasure in French, but with like the worst accent you've ever heard. So Indigo, comes up and she starts describing the scene. And I love this. Her description is in black and white, really emo moody. She's like glaring at the camera in this like, I'm so deep kind of way. Her name Indigo comes up like sort of out of focus on the screen as she begins. And everything that she's describing, the dialogue is like very stilted and really, it's loaded with meaning that was probably not there or not intended when it was said. Stop taunting Aniq with your pranks. This is more than a prank. This is a metaphor for society's illusion of stability. And this dude stands up. I don't know what that means. I was over there doing the perfect prank when you spill beer on a guy. It's funny as hell. And then she continues, Indigo, Xavier urinated off the balcony onto Jennifer number 1, who unfortunately is still wearing the same dress she was wearing when she got peed on. So I really feel for her because she's pregnant, and that's bad enough when you're not pregnant, but like we don't need to be adding insult to injury. She called her husband to help wash it off, and then light, sound, chaos. And she says that there was something on the television, but she tries to avoid looking at screens, and we see her like recoiling in her mind movie with this like as if somebody is waving a dead fish by her face, and it's her effectiveness. It's just so good. Whatever it was, it woke up Aniq, and when he wakes up, not only is he like covered in beer, but his pants have been pulled down. And she says that Aniq says Xavier did this. And John Ralphio, what's his name? It starts with a Y. I already forgot. he says, center yourself. It wasn't his fault. But Aniq says, this ends now. And he goes upstairs. She hears a yell. And then all of a sudden, we have Xavier going over the balcony. And when she heads upstairs, she finds him standing in front of the mirror and like gives him this really significant look. And he's looking at his hands, she thinks, in such a way as to indicate like, what have I done? And when we come back to the present, the detective Danner is like, okay, what the fuck is with that weird art house movie? Which, you know, that shit had to have been told in quite a way for it to come across in dialogue that it was an art house movie. So she's like, all right, it points to one guy. Let's find somewhere private. You're up. And she has Culp stay with the rest of the crew. I'm really curious what role he's going to play in this, because he feels like a bit of a dodo bird that's meant to show how incompetent he is at every turn. But I wonder if he'll wind up serving a purpose, probably unintentionally, is my guess. So, let's see. She's looking through her stuff, and there's this weird thing where he's telling her in the room exactly where everybody was positioned, like clockwise, as she's getting out her notebook. And then she starts pulling out little like figurines of cats. And she says, I thought putting out this stuff would relax you and make this kind of fun. And he's like, no, it's not fun. I would like to have fun in the process of figuring this out. And he says, I could be arrested. And she says, only if you did it. And I'm like, oh, if only that were fucking true. So he says, oh, so you want to hear my mind movie? Which, of course, starts out as a romantic comedy. This is delightful. So he explains about how Zoe made it seem like she really wanted to see him. And I love his name when it shows up at the beginning of his movie. There's a little heart over the eye. And he gets out of the car and he runs into Jasper. That's his name. Who I am going to go out on a limb right now and say Jasper's the killer. I have no basis for that. The only reason I'm saying this is because in murder mysteries, the nicest, most disarming person so often turns out to be the killer. I am going to hope that the show isn't that predictable with their like tropes, but as of right now, I'm going to do like every episode an update at the end who I think the killer is. As of right now, Jasper is sus, and I'm putting him on the list. So he is super, super supportive of Tariq in a way that I want desperately to believe, but I can't tell if it's sincere or not, because it doesn't seem like they are in touch consistently enough. Based on the fact that he has this rental car that he's trying to pretend is his, if he thinks that he can convince Tariq that this, I keep calling him Tariq, I'm so sorry, Aniq, if he believes that he can convince Aniq that this is his car, that means that they are not in each other's lives that often. And I have to assume some of the warmth here is a bit of a put on. I don't know. So the bit starts off with, first of all, Chelsea, who's standing there with her bag suspiciously pressed against her stomach. And when they say, hey, Chelsea, she turns and drops her bag as if she's very, very alarmed at the fact that they have talked to her. And she asks, were you guys following me? Which is a really weird thing to ask. She's in front of a picture of River Harris. I don't know if that's significant, but I'm going to mention it. And she's got all kinds of crap that fell out of her purse, but the one that we keep noticing, of course, is the flask. So apparently she had a breakdown and really she used to be class president. So it's seen as a bit of a fall apart for the it girl who should have been successful and wound up not hitting the mark. I love the picture of Aniq with his little like pose with his chin on his fist. Bless it. And Jasper is pointing out that he's right next to Zoe and that it's obviously kismet. That's why they put you next to each other. So at this point, Aniq shares a fear that every time he would get close to her in high school, some rich, handsome guy would swoop in and scoop her away from him. And just as he is saying this, Zoe walks up and he turns around and tries to affect a casual pose by putting his hand on the nearest structure, which happens to be a balloon arch, and he pulls all of the balloons off the arch, which begin to pop, and it's like a real confusing mess, but it's also kind of adorable. And when we come back to the present, Detective Danner is like, okay, really? This is really cute. Like, this is, I mean, even the wild, obnoxious best friend, like, amazing. Rom-com vibes. Perfect. I need popcorn. And she literally pulls out a bag of popcorn. Can I get one piece? And she says, yeah. And she tosses it and he catches it in his mouth. So they run into this dude who asks if they recognize him. And I'm getting the impression he didn't go to their school. But he's describing some things and he's like making it sound like he's really hurt that they don't remember him. And I'm not sure if he's full of shit. A part of me thinks that he's a giant Xavier fan and that's why he's here, that he's pretending to have gone to the school. He does wind up at the party after, which I have to assume he wouldn't have been able to get to if he weren't asked, and that Xavier wouldn't have asked him to come if he didn't recognize him. But he clearly didn't want Aniq there, and Aniq wound up finding his way there anyway. So it's possible that this dude, well, also, like wound up finding his way, following somebody. I don't know. I like the fact that he tries to get them to tell, like, oh, you remember me? Then what's my name? And I think it's Jasper who's like, wow, you're coming in really hot, just like putting them on the spot. This is really, I can't decide. He goes into the gym at one point and is like waving, trying to get Aniq's attention, and Aniq is simply not noticing him. And that's just kind of the thing, is that nobody tends to notice him, which would also make him pretty good for sneaking into parties. He's wearing like really drab, bland clothing, all in like shades of brown and tan. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see what the deal is with this guy and what his mind movie looks like, because if he is truly background for so many people, I don't know. What is his perspective even going to be? So this is when Xavier rolls up. I say rolls like he's in a car. He is not. He is in a helicopter. And he comes in making a huge scene. He's in a gorgeous purple suit with no shirt on and an initial X. I'm just here to reunion like all you normal people. Really trying to act bashful and humble when in fact he is so delighted to be the center of attention. And he is swooping in on Zoe right away, which causes Jasper to try and cheerlead his friend, because of course Aniq is getting really discouraged by the fact that exactly what he described, a very rich, handsome man swooping in, has happened. It's exactly what he was so concerned about. So he's, again, I want so bad to believe that Jasper is just being supportive because he genuinely gives a shit, but there's something about how over the top he is that's making me suspicious. I don't know. So they go to check in, And the Jennifers are the ones that are at the desk doing the checking in. She tells them to hand her their name tags so that she can write what they do on the tags for networking purposes. And then the other Jennifer, her husband Joshi, is in Tokyo doing a deal with poochkicks.net. It's an NBA grade sneaker for dogs. I would believe it. I would believe it. And both of them are in like bright florals, and they both have their hair kind of half up, and it's straight and dark. I will say Jennifer 1's got like half up on only one side, and her hair is curled more, but they do have a really similar look as one another. So when Aniq tries to explain that he designs escape rooms, she doesn't know what to do. Like, she's never heard of an escape room. She doesn't really know how to describe it on the thing. And so he's attempting to give her a synopsis, but she's like writing stuff on his tag. And he says, you just wrote Santa Claus. Because he said something about how he has a holiday themed escape room that he did recently. And we come back to the present, the detective, who is telling him that she went to that same one and that she needed a clue over and over again because she couldn't get out. And he says, oh, so as a detective, you weren't able to just take the clues and apply that to the puzzle itself and then solve and she says, not how my brain works. I'm more of a social dynamics type of person. Anyway, go on. And you see the look on his face as he realizes whose hands his fate is in at this moment. So everybody comes into the gym. I love that Jasper is kind of assuring Aniq that he is going to be by his side. I am going to stick by. I know you're nervous. And then he sees that somebody's there and immediately departs. And he comes in while Zoe is singing, what do you call it? Karaoke. I'd take back those words I heard you, and you would say. So she's singing, and he is really into it. And it becomes clear she's like singing toward him, blows him a kiss, and he eventually goes up and decides to sing for her in one of the best songs. It starts playing My Neck, My Back. He dedicates the song to her just before it starts playing. And so once he realizes it's the wrong song, he's trying to sing over it. All you ladies pop your diplomas like this. Shake your feminism. Respect it good. Attend this reunion just like you should. Right now, I know you can hear me. I'm on the microphone. My God, you guys. My neck, my back. Marion Barry did some crack. Remember him? My neck, my back. I like my pancakes in a stack. Can you turn the song off at this point? It's just cruel. Oh, God. And it's Zoe who goes over and yanks the cord out. You guys, I was laughing so hard. Oh my God. The idea that song would start playing is already funny. But then him trying to cover up the lyrics by just saying random rhyming shit is an inspired decision. Like, it's just, it's very good. Oh, it is Shaggy that did Angel. Because I know that there's another guy. Oh no, you know the song I'm thinking of? I can't remember the singer's name. It was Sean something, I think. But he did that song about how he can't date a girl because she's so beautiful, and if she ever dumped him, he would kill himself. You know that song, suicidal, suicidal, when you say it's over. I was mixing it up with that guy. But anyway, as he's talking to Zoe about this embarrassing moment, which really feels like a perfect rom-com lead into chit chat, then we've got Xavier rolling up and saying, hey, I'm seeing that nobody got you a drink. I got you a Kir Royale because it matches your jacket. And you can see that Aniq is feeling a little bit like, oh, I should have gotten her a drink. And Xavier is really laying it on thick with her, like going for it. And he is talking about how he saved her a seat at his table, but there isn't room for Aniq. So he tries to be all cool, like, yeah, I'll catch you later, man. But it's obvious what he's trying to do. And they're talking, him and Jasper, later about whether he can compete with Xavier. And it turns to talk of her ex-husband, Brett, which they both agree he is better than. Brett's the answer to the question of what if a human butt could wear a jacket. And then he rolls up and sits at their table. And he starts talking about how much he hates Xavier. I hate his little purple suit wearing Bieber hair ass. Why wear a suit if you're not going to wear a shirt? You want to show off what? You don't have hair on your body and you got muscles? In some countries, if the man doesn't have hair when he turns 18, they kill you. They kill you. It happens. You ever been to Hungary? And both of them say they have been? If Xavier touches Zoe, I'm going to fucking lose it. I think he says flipping in the subs, but I don't know if he swears. I feel like there was swearing in this, but I don't actually know. Maybe he didn't. I just assumed that he did because the next thing he does is slam his knife into the table, which Aniq tries with both hands to get out of the table, and it does not come out. So this is the point in the story where Aniq talking to the detective, she's like, I just want to clarify that you're basically giving this guy the exact motive for murdering the dude. I just want to make sure that I have that right. We go back to the past, and Jasper is explaining how he is going to go ahead and distract Xavier so that Aniq gets a chance to talk to Zoe. And he says, you will not even hear me. I'm going to be like that little Twitter bug. Know what I mean? It's a bug. Twitter uses a bug. And Aniq is saying it's a bird. The whole point is that it's a bird. And I just wanted to be like, about that. Oh, God. It may as well be a bug. Who cares? Christ, can you imagine absolutely fucking up? I just can't. Anyway, I had music business to talk with Xavier about anyway. So he goes over there, and I'm blinded by the talent for a second. Is that you? What's up, man? How are you liking that AV equipment I installed in your place? Because I was so flattered you called an old friend to do the job. And he gives him a look when he says this. But then Xavier defends himself. My assistant chose the company we hired. But that's cool, man. You know, it's nice to help the cause. And I'm like, at first when he said to hire like an old friend, I thought what he was saying was, you should have hired me, but you didn't. Like, I thought that this was a passive aggressive thing. But when Xavier says that he didn't hire him and that it was what do you call it? An assistant who did it. I'm thinking, okay, that's him making an excuse for why he didn't give an old friend the business. Is that, oh, well, it wasn't even my decision. Somebody else just set it up. So don't be mad at me. I didn't even make the choice. But then Jasper says something about how, like, but now when you go in there, it's insane, right? And I was like very confused at this point and realized, oh, he's being completely sincere. He did get hired for the job. And Xavier starts talking about the weird remote and how it doesn't work. And he says, all right, well, just come over here and I'll explain it to you. So he starts taking control of that situation. And Aniq swoops in and brings Zoe some bread. And they are chatting for a little bit when all of a sudden the class of 2006 then and now pops up. And the photos that are going up are of her and Brett. And it's not even high school. It's clear that he like took over the slideshow. So she gets pretty agitated about this and decides to get up and leave. They decide that they are going to go to the cafeteria and have some of the delicious chocolate cookies that they still make, which I'm really curious what school has got freshly baked cookies in their cafeteria, because I've never heard of that anywhere I've gone to school in my life. And I went to like a private school with decent money, and it was still not a thing. But anyway, they pass by a huge mural on their way over to the kitchen, and it says discover your passion, and it's really cool, like the way it's illustrated. And he comments on it, and she's like, oh, I actually did that. And I have to assume that he knows already that she painted it, because despite it being cool enough to comment on for sure, there is something about how he stops and turns toward it that made it feel for me like it just felt like it was a studied compliment, you know? So at this point, Chelsea comes up and she's got her drink. She's super drunk and she's saying, I've got something to say to you right now. And she like chucks her drink onto Aniq's shirt. Now, it felt very on purpose. I don't buy that Chelsea is as drunk as she's acting she is. I think that this is a front. I think that she's been drinking, sure, but I don't think it's as, like, that she's as impaired as she's making everybody believe. And the way that she throws that drink on him is on purpose. She is trying to get Zoe alone, because Zoe is trying to get past her and she isn't letting her by. And it's making me think that there is some beef specifically between Zoe and Chelsea that we don't know about that. So, I don't know. There's something weird between the two of them. It just feels like Zoe is attempting to force Zoe to confront her about something. So Aniq, who had been going to go to the bathroom and deal with the stain on his shirt, he decides to double back and rescue Zoe, and they head over to the kitchen, and Chelsea watches them go, which later on, there is a moment where she yells to Brett how Zoe and Aniq were making out, and is clearly trying to either fuck things up for Aniq or for Zoe or for Brett, who knows, but she is out here just like causing trouble for reasons. And they go into the teacher's lounge, and this moment, she says, this is where we keep all the confiscated drugs. And she opens a cabinet, and there are a couple people in there making out that go running out. And I'm just like, was that Mr. Shapiro, the science teacher, and Quiet Heather? I love that it's Quiet Heather. That's the kind of thing that really happens in school. You just get like a nickname for, you know? So he has some weed gummy that Zoe had confiscated off of a student. The two of them do portraits of each other. Hers is very good. His is not. They wind up on the bleachers at the football field, and they are just about to kiss when they get interrupted by her daughter, who has rolled up with the babysitter. And she's talking about how Brett is at least a good dad, you know? it starts raining too. So the suddenness of the rain is like meant to add atmosphere and spontaneity to the whole affair. But yeah, so they're rolling up, let's see, family emergency. I called Brett like 1,000 times, but no answer. And obviously what this turns out to be is Brett sabotaging them. I am betting that he is paying the babysitter to fuck off because she's on the phone with her friend talking about how she's got the Bacardi. So it's not a family emergency. She's just getting out of it. And he's trying to cock block his ex-wife. So I think this is all a complete setup. So this is when we meet her daughter, very sweet. And she asks for Aniq to guard her while, Zoe goes off and yells at her husband. He loses track of the little girl who goes running into the reunion with a drink. And there is a drink that she grabbed that he pretends is his, but there's cigarettes in the bottom of it. You guys, I couldn't watch it. It was so horrifying. But eventually they get scooped by Xavier again. And he invites them back to his house for a party, but he is going to give her a ride in the helicopter, and he doesn't even want to give Aniq the fucking address to get there. Aniq winds up there anyway. I'm kind of speeding through this now because I've run out of time. But he gets hit by Jasper in his car. I feel like there's significance here. This isn't an accident. I don't see it. But Jasper wants to bring him to the hospital. And so this is part of where I'm thinking that Jasper is the murderer. It feels like he was trying to keep Aniq away from the party. It feels like he doesn't want Aniq there because there's a potential that Aniq has a really good motive. And if he were going to kill this guy, that is the dude they're going to pinpoint. So he's trying to get him away from it. But they wind up going to it anyway. He's got Chelsea in the car for reasons that he isn't explaining. We find out that the car is a rental. Aniq takes a sip out of something that's got an X on the bottle, and he winds up passing out. And I think there was something in that bottle. Or it could be him getting hit by the car that's having lasting effects. I don't know. But there's a chase where Brett's coming after them. They wind up at the party. And there's a lot of people there at first, but by the time the murder happens, a long time has passed. And most of these folks have cleared out. So eventually he is, in a confrontation with Brett, who shoves him into the shrimp sculpture. Then Brett, seeing Zoe talking to Xavier, goes upstairs to confront him. Zoe is sitting on the staircase looking forlorn, and he is about to walk over to her, and he stops and grabs a flaming Jell-O shot and hits the floor and completely passes out. When he wakes up, there is some weird movie on, and he had the beer all over him and his face has been drawn on. And he is pissed. He thinks for sure Xavier did this. And he goes upstairs to confront him. Can't find him. Xavier's nowhere to be found. And then he sees his reflection in the mirror. And the yell that he lets out is in response to seeing his face is drawn on this way. And Indigo is right outside the doorway when he yells. And she sees him and just sort of gives him a look. And at the end of this, Detective Danner is like, I need to explain to you how much what you told me completely points to you being the murderer. Like, it really, really does. I'm not talking about Brett, even though you're trying to push it on him. I'm talking about you. And he says, I told everybody where I was going. Why would I do that and then kill him? And she says, love makes you do dumb things. Maybe that's not even when you did it. You said you had 4 drinks of Jell-O shot and then you passed out. And even for a lightweight, that's kind of hard to believe. So he thinks that she's saying that he faked passing out and is trying to explain, but she basically goes, no, I have other people to interview, and moves on. So he stalks out of there past Jasper and is like, she thinks I'm the one who did it. And they walk past a jacket that's like on the floor, which the camera sort of zooms in on a little bit. And there's they go into the bathroom. He's trying to like wipe all of this marker off of his face and is saying like, I have to find whatever evidence there is that I didn't do this. Like, it's out there because I know I didn't. He sees in the trash can at this point a scrap of paper that exactly says on it, in a way that feels so suspicious, this is payback for what you did to me, blank, 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 chopped up to feel the pain. And they hide this from the detective. I'm not totally sure why they hide it. I feel like you want to tell her that you found this. Of course, it probably will feel a little bit too convenient, but Jasper's there as the witness that he wasn't just like planting it in the garbage. And they get interrupted at this point by, I can't remember his name, but her partner who found Brett trying to sneak away to his car. And I love that he has apparently a really strong grip, because Brett is crying out repeatedly over the fact that his arm is hurting him. And that's the end of the episode. And the next episode, I think, is called Brett. So I guess each episode is going to be taken up by the POV of whomever she's interviewing. And that's a really fun gimmick. Like, I like that as a story structure. So I just want to make sure, actually, I don't think that there's anything further there, but I am going to just click through the credits and make sure that there isn't an after credits thing. Okay, there isn't. Because sometimes that'll be, mixed in there and then I miss it. But yeah, I'm really, really excited. Murder mystery, very excited about this. And it looks like there's a second season. I don't know if it's ongoing and there is a third one coming, but I have to assume, even if there were, with the writer's strike and everything, that it's probably on hold. And I probably, there has been a lot of conflicting reports out there about how people who cover certain things should handle the writer's strike. And maybe I should look into that for this property in particular, because if it is currently running, it may fall under you're technically not supposed to. But even if it did, I don't really know that I could cancel this at this point. I don't know how I would deal with that. But I do want to mention it, and also that I fully support the writers. They're getting completely ripped off, exploited, and it's disgusting. And the money that is being made by those higher up the food chain makes it laughable that there are these claims they can't afford to pay people, which is the case in every industry ever. So support the writers, support the actors. All right, guys, thank you again so much. And thank you, Max, for commissioning this. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.